lecturer in the School of Physics for 13 years. And during that time I've seen and been part of some really great stuff working with the students. Last week, the week before, I was at graduation, seeing our students graduate again. That's honestly one of the highlights of my job, is seeing those people leave us and go and start their next chapter of their journey. But, you know, it's not always all smiles and happy faces among students, among people, is it? A lot of students do struggle during their studies for various reasons with their well-being, and that has consequences. So, 4 years ago in our school, one of our students took their own life. That's the first time I've seen that so close, if you like. You know, we can trot out all the statistics that we want about how many students take their own lives in the country, but in a year it's about 100. But when it happens in your school, it has an effect that's bigger. And the effect that it had on me was to wonder whether we were doing the best that we possibly could to try to help these people before it's too late for them and before they start trying to take their own lives or indeed succeeding. And what I knew as an academic was that we gather a lot of data about our students anyway. Like, I'm thinking of things like marks and continual assessment, reports from tutors, and thinking of attendances at meetings and classes. So I knew as an academic that I was giving over a lot of this data. And we could have been using that in a cleverer way to try to identify people who might be at risk. So student support officers and people with pastoral roles, like me as a personal tutor, of course students present to us with problems. I'm not really thinking about them. I don't know if you know this, but 75% of people who take their own lives are unknown to professional healthcare services. So just think about that for a sec. So that means that the majority of people, vast majority of people that get to that point, have never really had the opportunity to be helped. Okay? So it's really important to have something, I think, that can actively try to identify people that might be struggling, so you can follow up with them and figure out if they are. So I built a system which I called Student CRT, which gathers and triangulates this engagement data to show responsible staff in the school kind of like a leaderboard of who it thinks they might need to follow up with the most. And for each student, you can click through and see their storyline in the sense of everything that the system knows about them. So a trained, responsible member of staff can decide for themselves, based on that information, whether and how they want to intervene. Okay? We've used this system for 3 full years now in physics, and it's been used for 18 months in mechanical engineering, which is another one of the big schools in the faculty and in the university, as you probably know. It's been really successful in a number of ways. So in real terms, referrals to upstream counselling, so referrals to university counselling, from both those schools have decreased, and the trend in the university is that that number is going up in the other schools. Okay? And then there's a whole raft of anecdotal evidence of cases, you know, in particular in Mech-Eng they told me that there are some serious welfare cases that they uncovered among their student population just by having that conversation. So there's nothing in their data that tells you they've got a problem. The data just tells you maybe you should find out if they've got a problem. So there are a couple, at least, of serious cases that they uncovered using this system that they're pretty sure, almost certain, that they wouldn't have uncovered otherwise. And then, of course, they were able to intervene and support these students and help them. Taking your own life is like the tragic extreme of struggling, isn't it? But you're thinking about struggling behind that. So it could be that a student struggles and they have to repeat a year. Or it could be that a student struggles and they end up withdrawing completely from the course. Or it could be back up more. It could be that they don't fulfill their potential, you know, because of some struggle that they've had. Or it could just be back up again, they're not very happy. So something like 18%, 18% of students say that they're happy, which to me, when I say this, it makes me feel very sad. So I'm just interested in trying to identify who those people might be so that we can support them better. While I was building this system, of course, it occurred to me that if we could find it useful, then possibly or probably other places would find it useful too. And in fact, maybe other sectors would find it useful. In fact, anywhere where you've got kind of talented people that are under pressure, so it could be the police or the armed forces or elite sport, or, you know, or even in the workplace, anywhere where you have people who have a duty of care, if you like, to other people could find such a system useful. So recognising that, I came to UMIP, and I've been through their various programmes, and I've met some really nice and useful and helpful people through that, and I would single out Laura Etchells, who will answer your emails on a Friday night, even after her third gin and tonic. Okay. She waits till midnight to class. And of course Ellie Buckley, and together these two have been with me on all the different parts of this journey, and I really want to thank them now specifically for all their help. On the roadmap program, I really love the roadmap program. In fact, I wish I was still on the roadmap program. It's brilliant in terms of being challenged, and sometimes the things that you're challenged with are things that you kind of know, but saying them out loud and discussing them is really great and really affirmational. So, get out of the building is one of the things that you learn on roadmap. And you know, when I said that and when we learned that, I didn't really think that get out of the building would mean Buckingham Palace, but it did. I've never, to be honest, heard of Picture Palace before Laura told me about it, and I applied for it having already written a lot of stuff about what we were doing many times, so it wasn't really a big deal to apply. And I just forgot about it until I got an email from the Duke of York's private secretary requesting my presence at Buckingham Palace, and that was so then I thought, oh, you know, I better find out what this competition is. so I did, and of course I discovered that it's really great, and if anyone was thinking about applying for that, I would strongly recommend you do. There's not, the prize is a great prize, but it's not like cash, or it's better than that in a way. It's that you're part of a network where you can realistically ask them to set you up a meeting with someone that it might be useful for you to speak to. And you can expect that, you know, a message received from the Duke of York's private secretary probably going to get read more than an email or a message from you. Yeah? So you can use that for the whole time, for your whole life, effectively, in the system. It's not just, it doesn't stop when you leave the palace, it's like forever. So that's kind of, I don't know what number you can really put on that, but it must be quite high. And what I found through the journey of after that is that one thing kind of leads to another. So at Picture Palace you get to ask for something, and I got my ask within 48 hours of asking for it. So I wasn't unrealistic. I didn't ask to meet Theresa May or Nigel Farage or you know, someone like that. I asked to meet someone who might be genuinely useful. And I've met that guy now a couple of times. It's someone who's hooked into Universities UK. So I've got an ongoing relationship with Universities UK. I've also, through another route, got a possible collaboration with JISC, who are like the infrastructure group that already sell you know, technology products into universities. So they were an organisation that was on my list as someone who might be good to piggyback on top of. And so hopefully something will happen down that line. And you know, I've also met a guy who is the father of a student that took their own life. He's one of the Bristol students. You may know that in Bristol they've had a bit of a spate of student suicides in the last few years, which is terribly sad. But this guy really puts the face back on it for me when I'm thinking about what I'm trying to do and why. I kind of put myself in his shoes, and I can only begin to understand what that must be like. And you know, he's done a lot of campaigning and a lot of work to try and raise awareness, not of a particular product, but of an idea. And that's kind of where I feel myself being now often when I talk about this, is I could give you, or give an institute, the product, but I don't really care if it's not my product that gets used, as long as they're making this effort to try to support their students and identify them. So talking about just using the data you already have to try and support your students better. I was asked to make an ask, and this is where I'm going to stop. And this is kind of maybe a little bit of a challenging ask, I don't know. I've got a slight problem, which is that this product was built in a real scenario, real university, real school. I work in a real university, in a real school. When I talk to other institutes, the first question is often So University of Manchester has adopted this system right across the whole institute. And I really, really want to be able to say, yeah, of course it has. It'd be a no-brainer, wouldn't it? If you had something that you'd piloted for 4 years and you could prove that it was working, you'd think that people would be banging my door down to roll it out in all the schools in the institute, wouldn't you? So my ask today is, if someone could try to help me to make that happen, think about the 75%. The 75% of people who struggle with silence. Those are the people that we're trying to identify and help. And you know, apart from leaving aside the business, it would really make a big difference to our students if they were supported using this system. Thanks very much.